In the summer of 1897, the Arctic Ocean lay quiet beneath a ceiling of pale clouds, its ice field stretching outward like a frozen desert without edges. At the northern edge of civilization, on a small island called Danskia near Svalbard, preparations were underway for one of the most ambitious and unusual expeditions in the history of exploration. There would be no ships cutting through ice, no sled dogs barking into the wind, no long caravans dragging supplies across snow. Instead, there would be a balloon, lighter than air, filled with hydrogen and guided by faith in science, optimism, and the belief that the Arctic winds could be trusted. Salomon August Andrée was the man behind this idea. He was not a reckless dreamer, but a trained engineer, a careful observer of weather patterns, and a respected member of Sweden's scientific community. Andrée believed that the age of heroic suffering in polar exploration was coming to an end. Technology, he thought, could replace hardship. Where others froze and starved, future explorers would glide gently above danger, observing the unknown from a safe distance. The balloon would be the future. For years, Andrée studied wind data from the Arctic, convinced that stable air currents would carry a balloon from Svalbard across the North Pole and down toward Alaska or Russia. The journey, he estimated, would take only a few days. The risks, in his mind, were manageable. His confidence attracted funding, royal support, and international attention. Newspapers across Europe followed the plan with fascination. The expedition became a symbol of progress and national pride. 2 other men would join Andrée in the balloon's basket. Nils Strindberg was a young physicist and photographer, quiet, thoughtful, and deeply in love with his fiancée, Anna Charlier. He brought cameras and photographic plates to document the journey, hoping to capture images no human had ever seen before. Knut Frænkel, an engineer like Andrée, was calm, practical, and physically strong. Together, the 3 men formed a small, focused team, bound by trust and shared purpose. The balloon itself was named Örnen. The eagle, it was enormous, its silk fabric coated to reduce hydrogen leakage, its rounded body held together by countless seams and reinforced lines. Beneath it hung a basket filled with instruments, supplies, food, weapons, scientific equipment, and heavy dragging ropes designed to stabilize the balloon by brushing against the ice below. These ropes were central to Andrée's plan. By creating friction with the surface, they would slow the balloon and allow some degree of steering. In theory, it was elegant. In reality, it was untested. On July 11, 1897, after weeks of waiting for favorable winds, the moment arrived. The weather was not perfect, but Andrée believed it was good enough. The balloon was inflated, straining gently against its restraints. The air was cold, the sea quiet. A small group of observers watched from the rocky shore as the three men climbed into the basket. Final handshakes were exchanged. The lines were released. The eagle rose slowly, almost reluctantly, then drifted northward, away from land, away from human voices, and into the vast Arctic sky. Flags fluttered beneath the basket. The men waved. Within minutes, the balloon became a pale shape against the clouds, then a distant dot, and then nothing at all. At first, the journey seemed calm. Andrée, Strindberg, and Frænkel settled into routines, taking measurements, recording observations, adjusting equipment. They released carrier pigeons carrying short messages, hoping some would find their way back to civilization. One message confirmed that they were drifting steadily northward, spirits high. But problems began almost immediately. Hydrogen leaked faster than expected, causing the balloon to lose lift. Moisture condensed on the fabric, adding weight. The dragging ropes, instead of stabilizing the balloon, tore away during takeoff, depriving Andrée of his primary steering mechanism. The eagle became less a guided vessel and more a passenger of unpredictable winds. Within hours, the balloon began to descend dangerously close to the ice. The men threw overboard heavy equipment to regain altitude. They worked constantly, managing valves, shifting weight, fighting a quiet, relentless battle against gravity. Sleep became brief and shallow. The cold crept in, numbing fingers and slowing thought. After just 3 days in the air, the inevitable happened. On July 14, 1897, the balloon touched down on the Arctic ice. There was no dramatic crash, no explosion. Instead, the eagle settled into the frozen landscape, its great body sagging, its journey through the sky complete. The men climbed out into a world of white silence. They were not near the North Pole. They were hundreds of kilometers from any known land. The balloon, once their hope, now lay useless on the ice. Andrée quickly shifted into survival mode. The expedition had not planned to walk across the Arctic, but they were not entirely unprepared. They salvaged supplies, weapons, sledges, and boats. The plan became simple: walk south. The Arctic ice was not solid ground. It was a moving, shifting surface of pressure ridges, open leads of water, snow-covered hummocks, and hidden cracks. Every step required effort. The sledges were heavy, loaded with food and equipment intended for a short flight, not a long march. Progress was painfully slow. Days turned into weeks. The men established routines, cooking meals on small stoves, hunting seals and polar bears when possible, recording temperatures, distances, and thoughts in their diaries. Strindberg took photographs, carefully composing images of their camp, their sledges, the endless ice. These images would one day become some of the most haunting records of polar exploration. Despite their discipline, exhaustion mounted. The ice drifted beneath their feet, often carrying them backward faster than they could walk forward. Morale rose and fell with the weather. Some days were calm and bright, the sun circling endlessly above the horizon. Other days brought fog, snow, and biting wind that erased all sense of direction. Food became a constant concern. The men relied increasingly on hunted meat, which they ate cooked, dried, or sometimes barely prepared. Illness lurked quietly. The cold weakened their bodies. Damp clothing never fully dried. Sleep was shallow, interrupted by the sounds of cracking ice and shifting pressure ridges. As summer faded into early autumn, the Arctic changed. Temperatures dropped. The ice grew rougher, more chaotic. Eventually, after months of struggle, the men reached Langkvarter, a remote, ice-covered island east of Svalbard. It was a place of rock, snow, and isolation rarely visited by humans. Here, they made their final camp. The last entries in their diaries are brief, calm, and restrained. There is no dramatic farewell, no panic on the page. Andrée continued to write in a measured tone, recording weather and observations. Frænkel's notes suggest declining strength. Strindberg wrote less frequently, his attention perhaps turning inward. What exactly happened next is still not fully known. The evidence suggests a quiet end. Exposure, illness, and exhaustion likely combined to overcome them. One by one, the men died on the edge of the frozen world, their bodies eventually covered by snow and ice. For 33 years, the expedition remained a mystery. The world assumed the men were lost at sea. Then, in 1930, a Norwegian expedition landed on Kvarter and discovered the remains of the camp. Diaries, notebooks, clothing, equipment, and Strindberg's photographic negatives were recovered, preserved by cold and time. When the photographs were developed, the past emerged with startling clarity. There were the three men standing beside the balloon. There were their sledges on the ice. There were quiet moments, frozen in silver and shadow, waiting decades to be seen. The story of the Andrée balloon expedition is not one of triumph, but of human belief in progress, of calm determination in the face of uncertainty, and of silence. It is a reminder that the Arctic does not respond to confidence or optimism. It remains vast, indifferent, and unchanged. At night, when the world grows quiet, it is easy to imagine the balloon drifting silently above the ice, the soft creak of ropes, the slow breath of hydrogen escaping into the sky, and three men watching the endless white below, unaware that history would remember them not for reaching the pole, but for leaving behind one of the most haunting true stories ever recovered from the frozen north.